Hello and welcome to UAT Time within the United Countries Special by First Ukraine. You can find us at the frequencies available to our website firstua.com. I am Sergey Velichanskiy.
And I am Olivier Vedrine. UAT Time is dedicated to bring Ukraine and Europe closer to each other by introducing the real Ukraine to the rest of the world.
For the first time in nearly 24 years of independence, there is a critical mass of reformers who are committed to changing the system, and structural reforms are being undertaken. This began in May with the election of President Petro Poroshenko, followed in October by pro-European parties winning a majority in parliament, and a reform-minded cabinet of ministers formed in December 2014, where the average age is less than 45, English is readily spoken, and the use of all modern technology is a norm. But that's not that simple. The civil service reform is one of the key reforms for Ukraine. Without professional and well-paid civil servants, we will suffer from low-quality governmental decisions and corruption. However, the reform is under risk. Who shall be responsible for its failure? Who shall do what it takes to bring up civil service to an accomplished standard?
Our guest today is Denis Brodsky. He is the former head of National Agency on Civil Service and served as Chief Human Resources Officer in leading international and national companies for over 14 years.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for a cup of tea. And today is a very hot topic because here's what I know. Corresponding draft law prepared as far back as in September-October 2014, barely, on April 3, barely passed the first reading.
That's correct.
But it should have been even adopted back in spring, according to our agreements with Europe.
According to Europe, the state-building contract and according to the coalition agreement that was signed internally by Ukrainian politicians, that's true, they had to adopt this law back in spring. It's not here yet.
Okay, so what is the update?
Well, the current status is that the law barely passed the first hearing in the parliament back in April, and then it was, according to the parliamentary procedures, passed over to the special committee of the parliament to agree all the changes proposed by our parliamentarians. There was more than 1,000 changes suggested. There was a special group created, again, with the huge support of the civil activists, like the professionals who can influence the development of the law and make sure that the law is for our interest of the citizens, not the politicians. Well, I lost count of how many meetings we had. We nearly agreed everything, found all the compromises required for the law to be submitted to the parliament for the second hearing, but the committee takes some unclear reasons why it has to be rediscussed again, why they have to re-vote certain articles again, so it's not still ready for secondary hearing in the parliament. Last week, that was the National Council of Reform under the president who ruled the urging request for the parliament to prepare a draft for the second hearing. They urged them to prepare the law during August, so early in September it's been adopted by the parliament. Unfortunately, what I've heard recently is the Prime Minister launched a heavy criticism on the law, which is a bit strange, because the law has been developed by the government, by the national agency. So they had all the possibilities and all the means and tools and leverages to influence the law and to make it at the best quality they support. It's very strange that now a Prime Minister, the author of the law, doesn't like it. That is a very interesting situation with this law in Ukraine. It's very funny.
It is interesting because for the whole year, the Prime Minister and his team has participated in, changing and bringing the, discussing the amendments and bringing the changes, and so, well, the question is for you, Olivier. You know how it's been done in some other Western countries, especially from the former Soviet bloc. What do you think about this? How easy did it go?
You know, I think we can take two examples. First example, Poland. In Poland, they did a shock therapy. And this shock therapy was during 2-3 years, not more. Not more. And now we can see the result. Poland is a country member of the European Union.
Well, it's been only 1 year since this law has been discussed. Maybe it's not that bad yet.
No, hold on. For Poland, I know it for heart. For Poland, it took 2 weeks to develop the law, and then another month to implement it at the parliament. They understood this is the most critical, the first reform to be taken. You don't have professional government, you don't have economy. That's simple.
That's why I talk about shock therapy during 2 years, 3 years, because that was the effect of the shock therapy.
Yes, yes.
That means Poland changed in 2 or 3 years. 2 or 3 years, they changed everything in Poland. Everything.
Okay.
If I take another example, Greece. Now we have to face a crisis in Greece. This crisis is not only an economical crisis, it's also a political crisis. Why? Because during 40 years before, the dictatorship of the colonel, in Greece, during 40 years, all the governments, right, left party, all the governments didn't take the right reforms to change the administration. And the result is inefficient administration, corruption, and we have to face this political crisis in Europe.
Well, good. That means we have 17 years to go. We've lost already 23. We need to wait for another 17.
God save us from that.
God save us from this.
Really, as far as I know, back in 2011, there was some sort of civil service reform done here in Ukraine, but it was not done the way Europe really wanted to see.
Yeah.
And so, but this time, European Union may provide us up to 75 million euro in support for civil service reform in Ukraine if the government and parliament adopt relevant documents on time. I want to stress on time. And so my question is,
when is the time?
Yes. Are we maybe late?
Well, Europe has still, enough of optimism and enough of patience to wait for the law. Yes, it has to be adopted back in spring. They're still hoping that by the end of the year it will be in place. And again, if we take the example of Poland and what the difference between law developed back in 2011 and what we have on our table today, the law back in 2011 was developed by our civil servants, by our government people, to serve their interest, the governmental interest. As the father of reform in Poland says, well, it's the same as asking giraffes to draft law for their zoo. So they would act to have very low fences and to food being held very high. So that was the law back in 2011.
Okay.
What we've done today is a completely different law. We've drafted it being very heavily influenced by civil activists. This is the law that we as citizens believe our government should serve us. That's first. And by the way, we have a very positive review from Sigma, which is the well-recognized European body who has a great expertise in public administration reforms all over the world. We have a very positive review from Sigma on our law. So this has nothing to compare with 2011. That's a different story.
You are right. Europe is very optimistic and patient also. But Europe is waiting for a result because we are very pragmatic. We don't want to talk a lot now. We are waiting for result. And if you see, and if you read some declarations of Juncker, of some other high civil servant of the European Union, you can see that patience is enough now. We are waiting for result. And I want to underline to the Ukrainian government, really take care, because maybe the patience of the European Union will have a hand.
Okay.
You don't have to convince me.
Yeah.
I lose my patience
I know.
as well. You know,
I know,
I
but-
want to live in a different country, and I understand clearly that I will not live in a different country having the old government.
Of
Well,
course.
I remember a year ago when Denis was invited to be the head of the National Agency on Civil Service. He had to leave a very good position and to join the national agency in the hopes of future, where we all were at that time. We were so excited and optimistic, but maybe perhaps some even naive, right? Gullible, because we kind of had hoped that things will take a different shape very quickly. Well, but yeah.
We hoped for political will. We were ready to change. We were ready to abandon our well-paid jobs and to serve the country, having the political will.
Exactly. And there are some other people that have joined the government from good business positions. Well, some of them are still there. Hopefully they're doing good. But some have left. In the past year, a lot of people, went back to their own, to previous positions because they couldn't.
I beg your pardon, but I won't maybe I can take an excuse for Ukraine. Why? Because, we talked about Poland.
Yes.
Poland was not in the Soviet Union.
Okay, that's true.
We talk about Greece. Greece was not in the Pact of Warsaw and under Soviet empire, But Ukraine was in the Soviet Union. And that's a big difference. That's a big, big difference, because Soviet mentality has to be destroyed. And in Poland, that was not the problem, because Poland was not in the Soviet Union. But here in Ukraine, you were in the Soviet Union.
But you can't excuse it for us being for 70 years in the Soviet Union.
I try
Come
to
on.
find an excuse.
Thanks for trying.
Thank you for advocacy.
I don't buy this. I don't buy this. Really. Well, there is a difference, of course. Even with the Baltic countries that has less of Soviet history than Ukraine, twice less, I would say. But still, if you have a new government, if you have a new president, if you have a new will to change, and the passion for change, everything is possible. Well, the prime minister should be the leader of the public service reform. That's clear.
Yes.
Nobody else could do this.
Yes, yes.
And we have very strange how prime minister now opposes the law he has developed. But what's going on in his mind?
What is it in this law that scares off the politicians and perhaps the prime minister as well? Okay, according to draft law, selection and appointment to all the offices of civil service, which we imply, by saying civil service, we imply public administration offices, shall be performed exclusively on a competitive basis. I mean, it concerns even the offices of heads of agency services, inspectorates, as well as heads of local state administrations. So we're talking about losing the grip. They have a grip on the key positions which gives them the control. Well, and now the activists, the socialist, civil activists really come with this, pushing this law. And I guess if it wasn't for you, even the first hearing wouldn't be successful.
No. The parliament was absolutely left abandoned. The cabinet of ministry took no actions to support the law, to launch any advocacy campaign, anything. It was all done by civil activists. I've been running around parliament, talking to the MPs and convincing them to vote for the law.
So on one side, they go to the West, they say, okay, they take the compliments, because some of the West politicians say, oh, you're doing quite well, you've been, you've changed so much, you've done, and you speak English, yes. It's like, well, that's, but on another side, there is a lot of sabotage. There is a lot of things that are not, there are deals that are done undercover. And the real reforms are not taking place.
And that's a classic example. This exactly reform, it's a classic example. When you talk to any politician publicly with the microphones and cameras around, they will all support the law.
Yes.
They praise for new law. They love it. They say that it's so innovation to have the new public service. We all want to have open competition for vacancies. We don't want to have the political influence on our government. Yeah, they say it on public, on cameras.
Yeah, that's why.
But they do differently.
That's why now the European Union is a little bit afraid about the process and the result of the process, and we are waiting for the process and the result of the process. But you know, this is very difficult because all those high civil servants, they were, some of them, both their position. What do you think about that?
Well, but that's exactly what we want to change.
Yeah,
no? That's a whole system of political corruption.
But that means this. I repeat, this is, you have to cut with this Soviet heritage. But you have 70 years of Soviet system. You know, I try to find an excuse. You know, but I am totally agree with you. Now you have a new government, and this new government has to do the reform.
I'll give you another example. Georgia, 70 years of Soviet time as well.
Yes.
As well, yeah.
Compare the difference.
Political will.
Political will can make real miracle.
Makes the difference, that's true.
And that's what makes the difference.
Mr. Saakashvili is now governor of Odessa.
Of Odessa.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point. And it's a very difficult job for him, because again, we were trying to develop, that's the sequence of events. When I left the national agency, because we didn't find a common ground with the prime minister and nobody wanted to reform, and I first went on cameras explaining this reform, nobody even talked about, nobody even thought about reforming civil service. A year after, everybody understand that this is a vital reform. So we sat together with the experts, and during the summer last year, back in September, October, we already developed this draft. Mm-hmm. And when the government then woke up and said, well, we need this law, we gave them the law. We fought for keeping all the vital things from this law alive under all the attacks of our old-fashioned politicians and old-fashioned civil servants. Mm-hmm. And we did our job. We dragged it up to the first hearing through the parliament, making sure that this is a consistent, innovative law that will serve us as a citizens, not them as politicians. That's important. What have we done? We wanted this law to be adopted as it was planned by the European agreement, by our coalition agreement in spring, because we wanted the new elections, then the new parliament, we wanted to give them the new game of rule of game. It didn't happen. This law laid in government for 4 months. Then we have all the new ministers, all the new governors trying to change with the old system, with the old rules. When they can't replace people, they can't fire them. Yes. When they make any changes, like, for example, redundancy plans, oh, we've made redundant 20% of our civil servants. But they lose money. They can't use this money for paying other people. It's very easy for our prime minister or the minister of the cabinet of ministers to say, well, we don't have money to pay good salaries yeah, they say it right now.
Yes.
But the law suggests exactly clear already first measures to address this issue. When you make redundancy in the ministry, you keep money and pay it for those who stay. This is in the law. On camera, they all support the law. And they all praise for money. They say, well, we can't pay our officials. Here's the law that addresses the issue. Vote for it.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that on one side, what I hear, yes, there is no money. But on another side, without accepting the law, right now they're trying to create in Kyiv Oblast, Kyiv region, they're trying to implement some of the little pieces of that law as to like increasing salaries and stuff. They want to check out how well is it going to go, and if it goes well, then we will expand it to the whole country. But in reality...
But they can't. There is no law that would allow them to pay more. Our current law states that they have to be paid from the national budget. Period. What we suggested in the new law, they can be paid not from the budget only, but from a special funds authorized by the government and by the national law. Instead of having a political corruption, we want to have a special fund. And the European Union talks about 80 billion euros in support of this reform, in addition to the 75.
Yes.
They are prepared to invest and to spend money on paying a good salaries for good servants. But they don't want it on you. It's very nice to speak on cameras.
Yes, it's always very nice.
Yes.
But
do something, push the button and green, please.
I am totally agree with you. You took this example of the Oblast of Kiev, yes?
Yes.
Kiev region. If you don't have a law, you can talk, but without the law you will do nothing.
Well,
and this is only blah blah blah.
That's a glass. Well, to me, that's a good show-off case to show the rest of the world, yes, things are happening, but in reality, the root issues are not, well, it's like painting the leaves on the tree where the roots are rotten, Well, we've been in the army, and you've been, but you've never been to in the Russian army. When it's true that to have a general visit the army base, we literally had to paint grass in green,
just to make it nice,
so it looks good. Instead of really,
watering,
watering, and taking care of it.
This is, that's mean for me.
But that's again, that's 70 years of our mentality. Yeah. They probably still are Soviet army soldiers, ready to paint grass instead of
This is the concept of the Potemkin village, during the Great Catherine, Potemkin village. They do some village, but that was only théâtre, décor.
Yeah.
And this is the same story.
They believe
you showed only a decor.
Well, now the question is what can be done, and what should be done. What can, well, there are activists. You are part of them. You've released recently a statement, and you're lobbying as much as you possibly can within the...
We will do more. Yesterday we had a group meeting. We all agreed that we need to push more for the public advocacy for the law. We've drafted the key stakeholders map. We addressed all the issue. We are preparing to start individual discussion with all the people from the government involved, from the parliament, the opinion leaders, to get this law through. We don't give up. We still fight for the law.
But I am optimistic in your case, because I said every time that Maidan changed really Ukraine, and because of this,
it changed people.
People, yes.
Not country, not government.
Yes, but the people.
The people are different.
Yes, and now you have the beginning of a civil society in Ukraine, and the government know that, and they are a little bit afraid about that. That's why I am very optimistic for your work, because you have all the forces to win.
We have all the chances. The forces are not with us, yes.
The people is the forces, are the forces, for me.
In the long run, yes.
In the long run, yeah.
In the long run, for sure.
I am French, and motherland of the revolution. That's why I believe in the people.
We do.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add before we finish? Time is running, and this issue is such of importance that
interesting.
There's never going to be enough time to discuss that, because the law.
We have to invite him again and again.
Well, it would be actually interesting to observe once the things change. Or maybe there will be another little step of success for you guys, because otherwise, we'll be just getting the information from TV. Everything is being done, but in reality, things never change. If you talk to the businessmen, you talk to the just regular people when they have to deal with the public administrators on different levels, they say nothing changed.
Of course, nothing.
Yeah.
We have still this army of 300,000 people doing nothing, paying very little salaries. And the whole this mentality is still there. Nothing gonna change until we shake this system.
Well,
a lot of work to do.
Yes. Okay. Change is never easy. Too many people are in hidden opposition. They say yes, but when it comes down to it, they sabotage it. Will the desire of people to live in a better country prevail? Time will show, but I wish we had that time. It was United Country UAT time by First Ukraine. Thank you for joining us for a cup of tea.
Olivier Vedrine and Sergey Velichanskiy were working for you in the studio. Stay with us and we will show you the real Ukraine.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day and see you soon.